Look around today and you will see devalued currencies. It doesn't matter where, okay? You can see the dollar index, that's going to tell one story. But when you compare the actual currency that you use against real goods, your food, your energy, and so on, things have been completely out of whack. I'm going to show you some of that information today. And if you stick with me until the end, I will give you 3 countries right now that are collapsing. Their currencies are being devalued right now as we speak. So I've got a lot to cover. Let's begin by taking a look at the UK. I'm going to show you several things from the UK, then we'll talk about China. UK train drivers strike again, risk of more action if talks fail. So that's one thing. We see a lot of that civil unrest that's been brewing here. It's going on in the UK. We've seen a lot ever since Brexit began years ago. There was the talk back and forth, do we not? And then there was the whole argument of, is this going to create a collapse in this country? Well, look at what's going on here right now today. The economy, as well as all of Europe, is looking extremely weak. They need growth. They need that, a really big change, and it doesn't look like it's happening anytime soon. That's an absolute fact. Looking at this, strikes cost UK restaurants £100 million as staff stay home. Shops in central London suffer a sharp drop in footfall. Train drivers and teachers unite for a day of mass protests. So of course this is going to have an impact. That's another thing, right? You got the strikes going on. The same situation happening in France, okay? Maybe it's for a different reason, pensions and so on, but what is the core problem? It's that there is a lack of prosperity, and this does not happen overnight. It's not as if something came out from outer space and has suddenly created a problem. This is going on for years and years, building and fomenting, and it's going on in the UK, it's going on in France, and we see it other places as well. UK insolvencies reached the highest since 2009 financial crisis. Important, right? This is going on right now today for corporations in the UK. They are experiencing very, very high levels of prices that they have to pay on their goods. How many different shops through 2020 and 2021 had to close down what they thought would be temporarily because the prices of things were simply too high. They couldn't get the workers, they were restricted, they were locked down, all these different things. And now they're starting to feel it. And some of those who were able to basically, I'm going to keep this going, I'm going to try my best to keep the business open. Now today, they just can't do it anymore for one reason or another. That's right now at levels of 2009, okay? Inflation in UK shops hits a record despite broader easing. Prices haven't peaked yet and will stay high, BRC warns. Retailers struggle with expensive energy bills and labor costs. So that's what I've been talking about here, and you see that. Of course people are going to be upset. Of course people are going to take to the streets, and of course people are going to say enough is enough. Like I said, UK, it could be France, it could be wherever it is that you live. You got to realize that. This is not as if we're reading stories, we're reading fiction, we're looking at Disney right now. No, this is happening before our very eyes. In this video, I'm going to show you 3 examples going on right now today that are collapses that are taking place in places that you would not have thought that only a few years ago. How could it happen, right? And this is where things get messy. Britain sets out plans to regulate crypto industry in the wake of FTX collapse. So you've got serious problems going on in the UK. And this is what the government is doing. They're going to regulate crypto. There should be, if this was, a proper scenario, there should be absolutely no resources going towards regulating crypto when you've got people that are striking at this level, when people can't afford to eat, when businesses are closing down. This is a very, very bad use of resources, time, and your tax dollars. UK Defense Committee Chair calls for massive arms factory in Poland. Of course, this is looking at what's happening between Ukraine and Russia. They want to build that arms factory in Poland, have those things right there ready to go so that they can be used for World War III. However, is this the best use of your tax dollars? Well, that's up to you to decide. You can decide that. I know a lot of people are opinionated on the subject. I just want to highlight the fact that you've got problems right now today in your countries. And of course, what are they worried about? They're always worried about helping out the special interests, the military industrial complex, all of these corporations and mega conglomerates that are never, never there for your benefit. Now let's look at China. We've got some serious issues happening there as well. China's real estate crisis isn't over yet, according to the IMF. And by the way, I've said the same thing. Authorities' recent policy measures are welcome, but in our view, additional action will be needed in order to end the real estate crisis. This is important. China is saying, no, we don't have a problem. But do you know that you do have a problem when you have 65 million empty properties? There's, well, I can't remember the number. I think it was $150 billion of bad debt that is associated, distressed debt, $150 billion worth. It's significant, okay? The China property market itself, the whole thing is worth something ridiculous, like $62 trillion. It is considered to be the biggest asset class in the world. So when you do have a crack that appears there, you gotta pay attention. It's not as if, well, it's a crack and then, it's only $62 trillion, no big deal. No, $62 trillion falls real hard. If you look at the measures, a lot of them addressing financing issues for the developers that are still in relatively good financial health, that will help. But the problems are the property market facing severe financial difficulties are not yet addressed. The issues of the large stock of unfinished housing more broadly is not yet addressed. So that's what they've got to come to terms with. We'll see what they do. What is China actively trying to do right now for 2023? This is like literally a part of what they're trying to attain, is they want more domestic consumption. China vows to boost consumption to power economic recovery. They're going to do this through, their social financing. We'll see if they're able to accomplish that. But they've got the housing problem. They have to boost up spending to get the GDP, to get the economy rolling, and they have to get the exports out. So lockdowns, if you see lockdowns, big problem. And number two, watch this, investors, if China's tech industry is going to, be loosened up, continue to be loosened up, then that is, of course, bullish as well for China. And then I had to throw this in here. German industry to pay 40% more for energy than pre-crisis. This is important for a lot of these groups right now that are reliant on German exports, German production. And look at what's going on in Europe. This connects in with the beginning. That's why I brought it to you. But you stayed until this point in the video, right? You want to know those 3 countries that could potentially be facing collapse, right? Or currently in collapse, I should say. Let me get to that right here. Let me show you. Lebanon devalues official exchange rate by 90%. And by the way, this is on top of everything that has been happening over the last several decades. I've got friends with their family in Lebanon telling me that what they are experiencing today in Lebanon is worse than their civil war. Think about how devastating that really is when you see it. A currency devaluation by 90%. Now you might think to yourself, 90% devaluation, that's crazy. A devaluation of the currency, that's crazy. But in the United States, they did the same thing. They devalued the currency in 1933, if memory serves correctly, and they did so overnight. It wasn't as if people were looking down the horizon, oh, they're going to devalue the currency. I got an idea. I'm going to buy a whole bunch of real assets today. It devalues. I'll be so wealthy as a result. No. This was happening during a very big crisis. People were not able to actually, withstand the damage. And as a result, 40% devaluation overnight. It can happen anywhere. Don't think that what I'm showing you here right now is something that is, don't worry, it's never going to happen. It's happened before. Okay, that's Lebanon. What about this? Pakistan, blackouts, currency dives, and corruption. Pakistan's economy is on the brink of collapse. And it's suffering right now. They've got major blackouts. Like the whole country was in a blackout. They need money from the IMF. You know what happens when the IMF comes in. Just read Confessions from an Economic Hitman. You could see that Pakistan being One more to add to the list, and then we have Argentina unveils the new 2,000 peso banknote as inflation bites. This is one more country. Look at it. You can see the new note, which will be worth $11 officially, comes after consumer prices jumped by nearly 95% in the 12 months to end. So think about it. They basically doubled. Prices doubled. So what do? They make bigger bills. That solves the problem, right? Marks the fastest pace of inflation since 1991. The largest bill, the 1,000 peso note, is worth just $2.70 on the alternative markets. So you see what happens, these black markets start to develop. This ultimately presents itself with a problem and is never fixed. It cannot be resolved. We see this time and time again. Things start to spiral downward, and that is very problematic for the people in Argentina. You've seen Argentina and Brazil saying, hey, maybe we should make our own currency together. Look at the BRICS nations. They're trying to collect together within themselves so they could stop devaluing against, at least against the US dollar, perhaps. They're going to try to do what they can. Their currencies are certainly weaker than the US dollar in relation. There's a big problem happening today. These are the three countries that are really, really taking a beating. And you could see in the case of Argentina, look how strong their currency once was. What about Lebanon? This was a country that was booming only a few decades ago, it seems. And yet we look at these, facts coming through day after day, looking truly unfortunate. So you've got to, number one, hold real assets. You've got to build something for yourself, and you've got to watch down the horizon. I'm going to bring you the details you need to know. If you go on those other channels out there, they're going to bring you the sensationalism. They're going to bring you information. You think you're being informed, but you don't get into the nitty gritty, the details like this. So if you stick with me here on this channel, The Money GPS, you came here for the truth. I will bring you the stuff you need to know. Hit that subscribe, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care.